All right, so continuing on from the rubber bits and how that helped Madris. Another interesting horse that I trained was a horse called Mambo at the gym. Now, as you guys see, and it's controversial, some people say racehorses don't need it, they're overused. Tongue ties. Tongue ties are used mainly to try and prevent a horse from displacing. We're gonna glass over displacing. Basically what happens is the soft palate displaces, it interferes with the horse's airway. They can't breathe as well as they normally should, so they underperform because of it. As you can see, the vet's pissed off by my layman's description, but we're gonna run with this. Okay, so tongue ties are used typically to prevent a horse from displacing in a race. Sometimes they need it, sometimes they don't.
What it does is it pulls the tongue forward and ties it down. So not only does it help with displacing, but also some horses will play with the bit where they'll get their tongue over the bit and then the rider has no control. So it's not just for displacing, sometimes it's for better control as well.
Agreed. There's multiple uses for a tongue tie. They're a great tool. I think they're highly effective. There are horses that hate them. There are horses that don't like them in different materials. Going on tongue ties quickly, there are cloth tongue ties that you'll typically see. They're white. It's a little piece of cloth that basically you tie the tongue with. I've had horses who hate the cloth tongue tie, so I used another type of tongue tie, which this might sound funny, women's nylons. They're stretchy. I learned this from a trainer that didn't like the cloth, so he used women's nylons. It moves a little bit more. It's not so restricting to a horse's tongue. They're more relaxed with it. With that though, I have seen horses chew through them in warm-ups or in the morning, so I took it one step further, and I learned this actually from the great Wayne Lucas, rubber bands. So the types of thick rubber bands that you will find on your vegetables in the grocery store, but you want to at least have them about an inch thick or 3/4 of an inch thick, and you can use those as tongue ties. You put it around the tongue, you put it in a figure 8, you loop it under the jaw. Now the horse actually, the tongue's pulled forward and the horse can still move his tongue. It's still helping the horse, but it's not restricting the horse to the point where it's going to piss it off. So that's a quick description on tongue ties. Moving on to this horse I was going to talk to you about. I had a horse called Mambo at the gym, who was a very loving horse. Man, he was just so sweet and kind. Dominique can tell you, as you can see by that look, he once grabbed her by the back of the hair and tried to pull her in the stall. He bit several people in the barn, and then finally, after my wife told me...
Let me be clear. I got attacked, savaged, twice. And when I asked this gentleman here to put a cone in front to remind me of whose stall I was in, it was an absolute no, you need to pay attention. It wasn't until the exercise rider got dragged into the stall that there was a sign and a cone put up. So let's just be very clear about priorities.
And then proceeded by a full screen gate so he could not get any more people. So anyways, Mambo at the gym, when he was sent to me, would not fully put out everything he had. You could still tell when he'd run, he'd have something in the tank, he wouldn't push himself. And as I watched this horse train in the morning, I could tell as soon as you put on the tongue tie, he'd be throwing his head around. It was extremely difficult, that he hated the tongue tie. So in England, I had learned something else. I'm going to give you this. Look up photos of Seattle Slew. You will see in those photos of Seattle Slew, he had a bridle that had an orange piece that came down the front, split and connected to the bit. That's called a Sherwin bridle. What it does is it lifts the bit up, keeps it up in the horse's mouth, and it helps them from getting their tongue over the bit. It's usually what we use it for. In Europe, tongue ties aren't used as much as we use them in the United States. So what I did was I said, look, this horse doesn't displace that often. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he'll try and get his tongue over the bit. Let's put the Sherwin bridle on him. First day, put the Sherwin bridle on him. Now his mouth is wide open as he's galloping around, which was wonderful to see. So I said, next step, which I'd also seen happen in Europe, is put a noseband on top of the Sherwin bridle to keep his mouth shut. So now the bit is up in his mouth, he can't get his tongue over the bit, and the noseband is keeping his mouth shut. So now this horse, we've got control of him. He's not messing around with a rider, and we've got the equipment how we need it so he can't get his tongue over the bit. That horse then won 2 races in a row. I retired, he went to a different trainer. The trainer would listen, put on the tongue tie, the horse never ran a lick again. So just a simple fix of tongue ties and how horses like, dislike, don't like tongue ties, don't like cloth, like the rubber band. All of those minor things can cause big changes in a horse's performance, which I'm sure all of you will find very surprising. But yes, I've had horses that hate a cloth tongue tie, and I put on the rubber band and they were perfectly happy. So that's one piece. We will now go on to a new topic in terms of what to look for when a horse is underperforming, and it is not unsoundness.